I'm sure you've read the title of this video, so you can go ahead and say it. Oh, you're just defending him because he's a white boy. You're a swirler and a bedwench and yada yada yada. But hold on. This video is inspired by Austin Null, but it's not really so much about him as it is the concept of being on the hook for decisions you made when you were young. And this doesn't just apply to Austin Null's situation. It also applies to people who committed serious crimes when they were 15 or 16 years old, and then they turn 30 or 40 or 50 and they're still in prison for stuff they did when they were 15. I'm not sitting here making the argument that these people should be let out of jail or be given a do-over. I'm just saying it sucks that a person can be held accountable for something they did when they had an immature mind and an incomplete view of the world. They're being held responsible for doing something that they would not do now. I was watching a documentary about people who had done serious offenses when they were young, and they were talking to them several years after they had committed the crime. And this one dude said that he was such a different person from who he was when he committed the crime that it's almost like he's being punished for something someone else did. Now, while I don't feel like he should be off the hook for what he did, I totally get what he's saying. I can also understand what Austin Null was saying about bowing to societal pressure to get married. For some people, there's a lot of pressure on them to get married once they've been with someone longer than 1 or 2 years, especially if they're Christians. The church folks start pressuring young couples to get married because they don't want them fornicating, can't be doing all that fornicating, and don't want to pop up pregnant, so go ahead and get married so you can fuck all you want. There's a lot of pressure from church folk to get married and build that strong Christian family so you can serve the Lord. That is the ultimate goal. That's eventually where we all want to end up, right? So Austin might have been thinking, well, I'm only 19 and I'm already getting married. I'm ahead of the game. Some people don't find somebody to marry until their 20s or 30s or even 40s, and I'm finding it at 19, so let's do this, woohoo! And also another thing that may have factored in was that I had watched years ago, Austin and Brittany made a video about how they got together, and in that video, like right before he proposed to her, he had like a serious medical condition, like where his lung collapsed. So like if you have a near-death experience, I don't know how close he was to death, but if you have like a serious medical emergency, I guess I'll call it, then that can really cause you to get scared about things and so-called want to focus on things that are important in life. And that's why Dr. Phil advises people that if you have like a big life-changing experience, then don't make any rash decisions. Don't make any really big important decisions for 30 days because you're still going to be high off of whatever happened, and that's going to color the decisions you make. So I think having that medical emergency may have pushed him even harder to get married. Plus, if you find somebody you like, then people might be telling you, oh, she's a great girl, and if you let her go, you may never find anything like her again, so you better grab it while you can. And this is something I want to tell everybody out there. There are multiple people, if not hundreds of people on this earth that you could be happy with. There's no such thing as the one. Now, it is a question of will you run into these people and all that stuff, but you don't have to latch onto someone and rush to get married just because you're scared that if you let them go, you're not going to be able to find anybody else. You can find somebody else that you can be happy with. They may be nothing like that first person, but that doesn't mean that you can't be just as happy with them. That scarcity tactic or fear of losing something tactic is a selling device. That's how you get people to buy something that they wouldn't necessarily want to buy otherwise, like a timeshare. But anyway, back to what Austin Null was saying. He said that he's been doing what everybody else has been pressuring him to do for the last 7 years, and for the first time in his life, he's going to step away from that pressure and do what he should have done a long time ago, which was make his own decision without everybody else influencing him. And right now, I'm not discussing whether this is a good thing or a bad thing. I'm just talking about the feeling of feeling like for the first time you're making your own decision. Another thing I can relate to that he said is that he is a totally different person than he was when he's 19. Anybody who's over 25, that's probably true for you too. You really do turn a corner around about 22, 23, right around the time when you would graduate from college. And I'm not saying you're totally mature at that age either, but you've turned a corner from being a teenager and, being like you're at the last stages of your childhood when you're like 18, 19, 20. When you're 18, 19, 20 years old, if something goes shit side up, you can still call, Mommy, come get me. Mommy, I need money. He's being mean to me. I need to come back to the house and stay. Like around that age, you still haven't cut the apron strings yet. But right around 22, 23, you start to get your scissors out. You may not be snipping yet, but you're getting ready to. And you can see that corner being turned even when you look at young celebrities like Justin Bieber. I'm not saying he's totally out of his douchebaggedness, but he's improved from what he was when he was like, 19, 20, whatever. I don't know how old he is now, but I think he's like 22, 24. But anyway, he's not as much of a dick as he once was. Even this Jake Paul guy, who the only reason I know about him is because there were like countless videos about him coming up in my feed, and I was like, okay, who is this guy? But basically, he's a young douchebag with a lot of money doing a lot of douchebag stuff, and probably, hopefully, in a few years, he'll be making videos or whatever talking about, oh, I'm not that person anymore. I'm sorry about all the stuff I did when I was a douche. And that is a maturity that's only going to come with age. Like, you can't sit him down now and tell him, hey, you need to stop doing this. He has to go through all that and get it all out of his system and become mature enough not to do it. I think most people, or at least a lot of people, if you threw a bunch of money at them when they were 18, 19, 20 years old, they're going to go a little crazy. And that's because the 19-year-old brain is just not fully matured. I don't think it's the right time to be making decisions about what you're going to do with the rest of your life, whether that's getting married or, whatever. Your worldview is probably going to turn on its head or at least be drastically different in just a matter of 5 or 6 years. Don't make any irreversible decisions. And while the decision to get married is completely reversible, the decision to have children isn't. However, Austin can and is walking away from his role as family man. He says he's going to be there for his kids, and he says he sees them 3 or 4 times a week, but that's a lot less daddy days than he would have had he stayed with his wife and his family. On the days he doesn't see his kids, he can wake up and not be a dad and not have to fool with them. And I honestly think that's how he feels about the kids. I feel like he loves the kids, but I think he feels trapped and overwhelmed because apparently there's some side chick that he's been texting with and, kind of getting close with. And in one of the texts to her, he said, ugh, they're awake. Kind of like they woke up sooner than he wanted them to. Or like maybe he was trying to take a little time for himself and now that time is over because the kids have woken up. Now, I don't have kids, but I do have a mom, and I love the hell out of my mom, but sometimes when I know she's calling me and she wants to bitch about something, I don't want to talk to her. I mean, I love my mom, and I'd maybe die for her, but sometimes I don't want to talk to her. Now, like I said, I don't have kids, but I can imagine that the same rules would apply. I mean, you can love your kids, but sometimes you like, can I just have some time for myself? Can you guys be quiet? Sit down, go somewhere. And that's something that society frowns really heavily on, is expressing anything but love for your children 100% of the time. You're not allowed to express any remorse for having had them. I'm not saying that you should. I'm just saying what society does not allow for. Once you have kids, you have to be 100% loving them all the time. But the thing is, I know that nobody loves somebody 100% all of the time. You may say you do, but there's times where you look at that person like, oh God, he's waking up, or oh, he's going to come over here, oh, she's calling me. Or like if your baby's screaming for no reason, they've been fed, diapered, and there's just no reason they should be crying, yet they won't stop. That's got to give you some pause, make you kind of think twice. I'm not saying that you would do anything to the baby or get rid of it, or that, you wouldn't even have them if you had it to do over again. I'm just talking about there are moments when you're going to be like, ah! But society really frowns on you expressing that when you're talking about children. So anyway, Austin appears to be a great dad, but then like he said in his videos, they basically only show the happy parts. They only let you see what they wanted you to see. So who knows what kind of dad he is when the cameras stop rolling. But from what I've seen, which is not much because I'm not there when the cameras are off, he appears to really love his kids and be a decent dad. But if he had it to do over again, I believe that he may not have necessarily not had them at all, but maybe he would have wanted to have them at 29 or 39, not 19. I don't think he wants to have 3 kids right now. I can tell that he wants Brittany to keep the kids. Like, he's not the type to say, okay, I'm leaving Brittany, but I'm taking my kids with me. No, he wants her to keep those kids, and then he wants to come over and visit a few times a week. He wants his freedom back. Really, what I see in that video was a bunch of buyer's remorse and a lot of mourning for lost youth, and I think he kind of wants to recapture some of the sowing wild oats that he missed when he went straight from being a kid to being married. So in a lot of ways, I can't blame him for the feelings he's having, but the way he's dealing with it isn't the best. I think what he's doing in leaving his family sucks balls. Yes, he made that decision at a very young age when he shouldn't have been making it, when he was immature and all that. But at the end of the day, he did make that decision. His kids did not make that decision. They did not have a choice in this, so I think he should be putting them first. That said, we have to be careful when we try to shame people into staying in situations where they're not happy. Because I watched Dateline and 2020 and all them, 48 Hours it is, are just chock full of stories of husbands and wives who wanted out, but the stigma of getting a divorce and breaking up their family was just so strong that they decided it would be better to kill their spouse or kill their children to get out rather than just go through the experience of being an outcast because they got a divorce. There was a guy, his last name was Longo. You can look that up. He killed his wife and children because he wanted out. And then there was a guy who worked for Joyce Myers. He wanted out, so he killed his wife and children. And even Susan Smith, she was crushing on this guy who said he didn't want kids, so that kind of drove her to drive her kids in the lake. And I'm not saying Austin would do any of these things. I'm just saying that that's something you should kind of think about when you start pressuring people to stay in a situation where they're not happy. Because when something tragic happens, people all say, well, why didn't he just leave? He didn't have to kill them. And I'm not trying to create this false dichotomy where either you have to leave someone or kill them. I'm just trying to say that things are complicated and everybody's trying to make it so simple. You stay together for the kids. This is the answer. This is what you do. And that's the whole mentality that got him into this in the first place, bowing to pressure from society about what he should do. So what's the right answer? What should he do? I can't say. If he's that unhappy, maybe he does need to leave to keep something worse from happening. I don't know. Or maybe what he's doing is even more immaturity manifesting, and maybe he'll snap back to his senses in a few years. It might be too late. She probably won't take him back, but I don't know. Life is complicated. There's not always a clear solution.